Tindig, Balitaan sa Rembrandt, April 10, 2015. Hosted by Dr. Eric San Juan. Guest sina Lieutenant Colonel Hernando Ciscar, Ambassador Reynaldo Arcilia, Attorney Melchor Magdamo, at Leon Estrella Peralta.
For the part of the AFP, we are enhancing our efforts in promoting human rights within the organization. Firstly, with the education and training. We have partnerships with the Human Rights Office and the CHR, the civil society organizations such as the Alliance of Alternative Law Groups with the M.I.S.M.O, para ICRC, and we are doing this training and education down to the level of our division, brigades, and even up to the detachments of our campus in advocating human rights and the international humanitarian law. So that's one for education and training. Next is engagement with civil society organizations and NGOs, wherein we focus on the monitoring of human rights violations, such that there will be continued efforts in promoting human rights and addressing the violations committed by our personnel or our units, in as much that we want that our units to be well informed or well educated as regards human rights. And thirdly is the promoting with the activities and programs of government agencies such as the CWC, Council for the Welfare of Children, as regards the rights of the children, especially on grave child rights violations. And for the part of the AFP, we are instituting this through memorandum circulars relative to rights violations, particularly in the conduct of operations and how we deal with the children's rights and women's rights, particularly in the field and in the operations area. So more or less, that's what we do in our office, and we are enhancing this also with our major services, offices, such as the Army, Navy, and Air Force. And on their part, they are also advocating this up to their lowest units in the field.
We've been talking about human rights for so long. Pero what's happening is we're not talking about human wrong. Kasi kung mapapansin mo, laging napapakinggan yung LG minority. Pero yung silent majority na high time na dapat mapakinggan, ilan lang yung papareho nila yung Peralta rito na nakakabuwing. And at the same time, ay kitang-kita natin yung human wrong dyan sa issue ng mga masapano. At parang hindi nakikita ng ating gobyerno yung big picture ng what's really going on na sila mismo yung pinag-aaway-away. There's now a rift between staff people and some of our military officers. Tuwa-tuwa yung mga kaliwa at some other groups na tawag na spoilers and destabilizers in the process. So what went wrong, Colonel? Can you comment?
As part of personally in what I see in the news, particularly with the ongoing inquiry with the Congress. So, for me, I just want to say na siguro hayaan na lang natin muna yung pag-imbestiga nila. Anyway, for us also, we want the truth to come out. And yes, we're hoping na sana hindi lang sakyan yun as a part of yung issue rin ng iba, for grandstanding or whatever reason. But for us to see to it that the truth will come out, and that maybe after that we can have resolutions and later move on. What is important, I believe, is yes, maybe minsan kung sana ba maganda rin yung madapa tayo paminsan-minsan. Maybe with this we can realize and we can understand some more of what really the problem is or are in particularly in Mindanao. So we have this problem for so long already, and I believe with all our efforts and pagtulong-tulong natin, siguro we will come out a better country later.
Dahil kay Ambassador Arcila, dahil ang daming advocacy nitong ating kaibigan at gusto natin siyang hingan ng update, especially yung kay Jonas Burgos, na nakatutok din si RG dyan sa issue na yan eh. Ambassador, please.
I want to make a correction. I am no expert.
Very humble ka talaga.
I am a president with the academy after a stint in the foreign service of 36 years and 6 years in the private sector. One day, I met my friend Jake Makasaya. But before then, I also met Tony Lopez. And Tony asked me, would you like to write a column? I said, what about it? About anything. Yung Business Asia niya.
Yes, correct.
Once a week. Sabi ko, magkano?
Patay.
500. Sabi niya, 500 per piece, sabi niya. O baka malugi ka pa. So that started my journalistic career, if you can call it that. But I was never in the media, except for the fact that I was once Assistant Secretary for Press and Public Affairs in the DFA, among others. And I am proud to say that I was a protege of General Carlos P. Romulo. Now, having said that, I write my weekly column based on what I read in the papers. So I don't have any staff. I don't even have anyone to do research for me. And thank God for Google.
All there.
I am able to
Get more
source some information from it. When Jerry and Eric asked me to join you today, I said, what am I supposed to talk about? And I think, Jerry, you mentioned something about human rights. I'm no expert in human rights. What I'd like to espouse, however, is husband rights. My wife has been crucifying me for the last 50-odd years. Now, so I said to Jerry, maybe we can talk about foreign policy. That is where I know a little something of. Although I must tell you that as an ambassador in this country, you don't really help in the formulation of foreign policy. See, under the Constitution, the President is our chief. He is the one who formulates and approves foreign policy. If he has a good and effective foreign secretary, he would be of good help to him. But the professionals in the department, they are not really that crucial in the formulation of foreign policy. especially with our historical background, our foreign policy has always been anchored on our U.S.-Philippine relations. Now I can say with conviction that in my 36 years in the service, to me, the glory years of our foreign policy were from 1991 to 1998. 1991, when we asked the Americans to please leave the bases in Clark and Subic, thanks to the so-called Magnificent 12. Now, I was at the time, in 1991, in Manila. I was Assistant Secretary for ASEAN Affairs and then United Nations Affairs. Then I left for Vienna in 1993, and I was in charge of our bilateral relations with Austria, Slovenia, and Croatia. At the same time, I was the permanent representative to the IAEA and was a member of its Board of Governors. Also, permanent representative to UNIDO and the United Nations office in Vienna. As representative to UNIDO and IAEA, I was happy in that it was the first time. See, I was also deputy ambassador to the UN in 81. And in those days, of course, it was still Marshal Well, it was President Marcos at the time. And we were always looked at, the Philippines always looked at as nothing but an American lackey. And that therefore, any resolution that we have to adopt in the General Assembly and the Security Council, by the way, I also sat in the Security Council for 2 years. Palagi na lang, we have to follow the American line. Now, for instance, when we were in the Security Council, 81, in the Security Council, you have the so-called non-aligned caucus. Every year, all this time, this so-called non-aligned caucus, which are countries that particularly belong to the developing world. These are the 2-year term members of the council. They get elected for 2 years, and then they wait another 20 years to be able to get back. We were not even welcomed by the so-called non-aligned caucus. So I grew up in the Foreign Service with this kind of atmosphere in our foreign relations. So in 1991, when our good friend
This portion is brought to you by
Ultra Pure Water Purifier. Samantala sa inyong lahat na gusto ng malinis na tubig, direkta sa inyong mga gripo, narito na ang Ultra Pure Water Purifier. Matipid na, garantisadong malinis na tubig ang hatid pa.
the Americans left Clark and Subic, thanks also to the Mount Pinatubo, because
That was actually the main reason why they left the Philippines.
well, they were forced to leave, yes. Anyway, in the IAEA, in UNIDO, even in New York, we started showing signs of quote-unquote independence in our voting patterns, especially on Middle Eastern affairs. And then I was here for a short while, almost 2 years after the bases left. I could see that our American friends started behaving, quote-unquote, behaving themselves, like they were no longer the proconsuls. And then, my last post, Thailand, The former military advisor of ERA, who was a friend of mine, he wrote to me asking my opinion about the proposed VFA. So I wrote back, I said, what is the purpose of this? And he said, this was started by Ramos. We wanted to have exercises again in the United States, according to the military. I said, there's no need for a VFA. Here in Thailand, they don't have a mutual defense treaty. All they have is a joint statement issued by T.I.N.D.I.G and Balitaan. It's not even a very formal document, if you will. But they have been having here, of course, not to mention the time when the Vietnam War was going on, when they had 7 American huge military bases in Thailand with all the infrastructure required. After the Vietnam War, of course, Thailand says, we don't want you here anymore, please go. And the Americans left everything. Unlike when they left Clark and Subic, I remember one time I was attending the Commission of Human Rights meeting in Geneva, because I was Assistant Secretary for UN Affairs. And this was after the basis. I told Secretary Manglapos at the time, I said, I'm going to the Commission on Human Rights. One of the things that I will be encountering there is the annual resolution tabled by the U.S. delegation condemning Cuba for its alleged human rights violations. So I said, Mr. Secretary, I checked with our embassy in Cuba, and the cases presented to us by the American embassy, I asked them what the status was. Havana came back and said these are all immigration cases that have already been resolved. So I showed this to Secretary Manglapos. I said, my recommendation this time, because we've always voted with the Americans on the condemnation of alleged human rights violations in Cuba. I said, I think we should at least abstain. I'm done. He said, okay. But I must ask you, Mr. Secretary, I said, you have to make yourself scarce, because expect the American ambassador to be on top of you, making a follow-up. So I went to Geneva on the morning when what they call roll call vote. Unusual, because these are delicate issues as far as the Human Rights Commission is concerned. So roll call vote. Before the roll call vote, one junior diplomat for the American delegation came to me and said, have you any instructions on item that we are going to take vote on? I said, I have not received any instructions. And he said, but we are about to vote. I said, I have no instructions. So, you know, this is very important to us. Our President Bush, the senior. So this is very important to us. You know that he wrote to President Corazon Aquino about this? I said, I don't know that. But do you know that President Aquino wrote to your president to at least leave one of the dry docks in Subic? Maybe you did not. He went and then had a huddle with his delegation. Then Rocco was Philippines. I think I was too loud and I said, abstention! You know, in no time the Cuban ambassador was in front of me. Thanking me, I said, you don't have to thank me. But it became a pattern after that, in that we had the guts to abstain. On the Middle East question, I was attending the General Assembly session when I was Assistant Secretary for UN, And in the General Assembly, there are numerous resolutions involving Middle East, African situation. And there we used to press the green button all the time, together with Israel and all the other allies. So this time, I had the pleasure of pindutin ko yung yellow, which is abstain. In no time, the American Deputy Ambassador came to me and said, "And I thought you were a friend." I said, "Harvey Feldman, obviously. Harvey, you know, if you can assure me that your government will supply us all the oil we need, I would press gladly every time the green button." Say that. Now, this just to illustrate to you that up to that time, until the VFA was signed, it was nice being in the Foreign Service for a so-called professional. So, after the VFA, slowly the past came back, and till today, I regret very much to say. And then the irony of irony is that Mr. Noynoy Aquino decided to appoint a foreign secretary who does not speak the language, who does not know how to speak the language.
In America.
Because he grew up in America to his collegiate education and is allegedly an American citizen.
He's not college sir. He's really an American citizen.
Okay. I'm still waiting for the proof. And you know how I call him in my column? At first I used to call him Amboy. Then it became so obvious that I started calling him Super Amboy. No objection coming from DFA. And then later on, he put in one of the big panels entrance to the DFA building a giant smiley. You know what a smiley is? Yeah. That yellow thing with the eyes, the mouth, but no nose. I said, "What is this for?" He said, "We serve you with a smile." Who do we serve in the DFA building? We serve foreign diplomats, foreign dignitaries. I said, "That giant smiley, talaga, pagdating mo, bababa ka ng kotse mo. Tatlong panel lang yung door doon eh. Yung isang panel sa gitna, may smiley. Dapat yun siguro sa consular office. May maraming reklamo sa mga masusungit daw ng mga tauhan doon ngayon. Na hindi mo naman masisisi sa dami na mga nag-apply. So, now I call him Super Amboy, also known as Giant Smiley. Okay? Albert Del Rosario. Now, I've never met the man. I have nothing against him personally. But when he starts mouthing the American or the State Department line, that hits me right here. You know? So, my second to the last column, I think, when he claimed that the U.S. involvement 100% none. And of course, that was what the American ambassador said, which he merely echoed. And sabi ko, is he doubling as the deputy spokesman of the American embassy? Deputy pa, ha? If so, I suggest that he should hold office in the basement of the American fortress on Rojas Boulevard. I have a feeling hindi na pinadadala sa kanya yung mga column ko eh. Again, see, when I was still in service, I was known as the Maverick. I was a nonconformist. although I was a protege of General Romulo, I used to reply or to answer back to the old man. I'll give you an example. When we were in the UN General Assembly session and the United States invaded Grenada, you remember the US invaded Grenada, teeny weeny state? So naturally the General Assembly wanted a resolution, majority, condemning the American action as something against the United Nations Charter, which is very blatant. No? So we were discussing among the delegation chaired by the General, and how are we going to vote on the resolution? This was still during the time of President Marcos. Naglakas loob ako, sabi ko, sir, I think we should abstain. Because what they did is against the Charter. Yes, sabi siya, young man, you must realize that we have a president who is pro-American. So, in short, we voted in favor of against the resolution condemning the American action.
This portion is brought to you by
M.I.S.M.O Whitening Soap. Narito na sa gustong pumuti at gumanda. Ito ang kasagutan sa problema mo, kapatid. M.I.S.M.O Whitening Soap sa murang halaga, kutis artista ka na.
And I'm, in more ways than one, see, I left the service early. I opted for early retirement. Well, partially because I was not really happy with the foreign policy, plus the fact that I have already reached the zenith, the peak of my career. There was no more room at the top, unless I joined politics and aspired to be secretary, but I'm not made for that. Luckily, I had a fallback position because I was recruited by a company from the private sector where I stayed and finally retired at the age of 65. After that, I was asked to join the academy and am now the Dean of the College of International Relations in Lyceum. I like what I'm doing now because among the subjects I teach only one subject every semester because as Dean I have administrative duties. I teach foreign policy and I teach the senior honor section. And a lot of them are now inside the FA. Hopefully they will not be victims of the same thing that happens when a new foreign service officer full of idealism, etc. After a while, postalon na lang. Walang bihira yung questioning niya. Sabi ko nga doon sa mga nandun sa mga active pa, ano kung ginagawa niyo dyan sa giant smiley, di ba kayo nahihiya dyan? O nga sir sabi niya, katiri to death Ano ginagawa niyo? Walang lakas loob I mean, just a simple thing. The foreign office is supposed to be dignified, di ba? Sober, and all that. Lagyan mo ng smiley. Isang pinto pa ang laki. And to think of this Del Rosario is the richest cabinet member. Yes. You would think that he has all the sophistication already, you know? It's so frustrating. And then we have an ambassador in Washington who has not divested himself of all his business interests. I read the column of Victor Agustin. He spends most of his time here attending to all the board meetings that he has. He is a member of or chairman of. Ang dami I mean,
Only in the Philippines.
then our friend Eric, I have not seen him for a long time. And he saturated my sleepy brain with all those things that he knows. Sabi niya, even the Aquino family have citizenship.
Oh yes.
when they were staying in Boston for 3 years. I'm not surprised. So, kaya ngayon, tawag ko ni Kinonoy, Amboy Noy-Noy.
Correct.
Wala pa naman threat sa akin, buhay pa ako. Matanda na ako, so I don't mind. If I die in a glorious type of wala akong mga anak na pinapaaral.
Alam mo,
Yeah.
the big problem that we have here is wala tayong ideology. Kaya ang thinking ng ibang mga bansa sa atin, especially mga diplomats, these Filipinos have a price. Can be buying loyalty sila rito, including mga big business. Kita mo, walang pati sa media. Nagiging mendicant ang media in the process dahil nga binigyan kayo ng ballpen, binigyan ka ng mic, binigyan ka ng camera, bahala ka na. It's sad, but it's the truth about what we're doing right now. Pastor.
Yeah, that's what I'm...
Binanggit na nga kanina ni Ambassador yung mga malaking dyaryo, 500 pesos lang per column. How can you survive? Nandito yung editor-in-chief ng Manila Bulletin. He knows better.
You may tell... when I spoke to Jake, kasi nandun nga kay Tony Lopez, maliit ang circulation masyado. But so happened I met Jake in a friend's clinic. And sabi ko, gusto ko magsulat sa'yo. Sabi niya, if you write for me, you have to take the vow of poverty, ha? Sabi ko, I vow. Wow. So that was 10 years or so ago. Last week, I went to see Pocholo. It's an old friend. Marshall Law, Daily Express.
Nice guy.
But I think he is the editor's editor. He's 88 now. 88. I went to see him because I wanted to talk to Jake, but Jake wasn't there, so I spoke to him. Sabi ko, Torch, 10 years na ako sumusulat sa inyo, gratis et amore, ha? Sabi ko. Emphasis on amore, sabi ko naman. Kami dito, emphasis on gratis.
The what?
No, I was asking for a favor. Wala rin si Jake. I have not been able to settle it. Anyway, like I said from the start, I'm no expert. What I write in my column is what I read in the papers, other opinion makers, and a little Google, and that's it.
Siguro, Ambassador can answer this question from a friend from Rembrandt. I think we should consider the rationale of Pinoy in the Mamasapano fiasco. He wanted pocket points for Purisima, that he wanted Purisima to be on top of the operation so that when the retention of Purisima can be justified. Now that it failed miserably, he is passing the blame on the Peñas. If we don't consider that rationale, we won't really understand and we won't blame Pinoy. Can you comment?
Who, me?
Oh.
Well, for those of you who have been reading my columns, after Noy Noy came out, 3 days after the massacre, at sinabi niya, matay lang, gusto niya i-save yung EPL, wala siyang kasalanan, etc., etc., and then sabi niya, magtatayo ka ng Board of Inquiry. Okay. Sabi ko, mas ilang Board of Inquiry ang, kasi nagpaiwatig na rin yung Senate, etc. Kahit anong dami ng investigation committee, whatever you form, wala nang mangyayari dyan kasi Noy Noy already set the parameters. They hint siya guilty. Kailangan i-save yung babalu. Ano ba yung sabi mo? BBL. So, anong lumalabas niya?
Babalaho Babala.
Babala.
Warning. Babala.
Hindi, ganun nga nangyari. Akala nyo ba may mangyayari pa dyan sa justice? Ano na yan? Sino pa? Wala na, no? Yung INT, my God. Bakit naman IMT? Ang pakialam nila dyan? Ha? At unang-una pinangunahan ng Malaysian. I have always been saying, as far as I can remember, this is a purely domestic affair. Bakit natin pinababayaan ng third parties dito? Tapos nung pumasok si Noy, hindi, maski nung kay Gloria pa, kilala ko yung peace panel head ni Gloria, yung huli, si Segis. Sabi ko, pare, bakit Malaysia na naman? Ano sabi sa akin? Pare, yun ang gusto ng M.I.S.M.O eh. Ha? Kasi, natapos si Gloria. To me, Noy committed treason by going to Tokyo. Okay? And giving so much importance to Ibrahim, at saka anong pangalan ng isa? Yung hindi niya ayaw niya sabihin ang totoo niya pangalan.
Iqbal. Ang real name niya, Jubail Iqbal.
Ang
He's not Korean.
ipapangalan ko ngayon sa kanya, the peace panel head of M.I.S.M.O, what's his name? Yeah. Hindi niya alam pangalan niya eh. So, alam niya. Ay niya sasabihin. Nung declare daw.
Ambassador,
Tanongin ko sa kanya, may asawa niya.
Ambassador, ito, no? I was had lunch with a friend of mine, no? He's a foreign diplomat. Sabi niya sa akin, Eric, are you Filipinos really that naive? I have 2 points here, he told me. 1, BBL. Second, Bangsamoro. Bangsamoro is a nation of Muslim. Nation of Moro. That's the country. BBL, what's your basic law? It's your constitution. So it's all clear. They have their constitution and they have their nation. So what are you going to do now? Do you still believe those politicians talking about it? Sabi nila sa akin, hindi ako nakasagot eh. Dali.
It became obvious that this
Sobrang
guy
kalokohan.
have a different agenda. Okay, let's face it, they want their own state. But you remember when they signed in Malacanang the comprehensive agreement? Ha? Tapos, tinugtog yung national anthem natin.
Simulat, hindi nakaharap sa flag.
Nandito sino ba yun? Yung
Si Rasak.
si Rasak. Tapos si Noy, tapos si Murad, tapos si Deles.
I have it. I have that photo.
Harap si Noy, saka si Deles sa ating bandera. Ano? Si Murad at si Rasak. Di ba nila si Rasak? No? Pero si Murad, nakaganon din siya.
Oh, nakaharap. Hindi nakaharap sa
And I cited that in my column. Is he not a Filipino? Baka yan natin may balak sila na pag-Samoro na, meron silang sariling bandila, sariling national anthem. Pero ito, gawin pa lang eh. Hindi ka na umaharap sa bandila mo. So, on my way here, it took me 2 hours to get here. Yung programa ni Mike Enriquez, they were conducting survey. Ano ba, bibigyan pa ba natin ng pagkakataon ng M.I.S.M.O? Lahat ng tumawag except one. Sabi nila, huwag na. Eh, masyado yata tayong, we've been taken for a ride for so long. But the problem is, we have a president who is obviously obsessed with having this BBL. For what reason, none of us really know. Yeah.
Ito, hindi nakaharap sa flag. Si Haji Murad.
Oh,
Grabe.
I see those things. I watch those things.
Wala.
Because of my foreign service background.
Terrible.
Pero pang isang pagkakataon sa UN, there was a meeting between the State Department and the DFA and other delegations. Yung ating bandera baliktad. Ano? None of them even bothered to have it corrected. I'm telling you, Ano pa ito? Ano pa ni Alberto Giro? Disgrace to the homeland. Pardon me for my straight talking, ano? Kasi to begin with, I'm no longer in the foreign service. Pangalawa, I was not different even when I was in the foreign service. Now, if there is any question you'd like to ask,
Galaw-gaw, kay harot-harot tingnan maliksi, di mapigil ang gaslaw. Galaw-gaw, ang lahat ginagalaw, napakaharot at pakialam. Galaw-gaw, kung tawagin siya'y ganyan kang karot, na trumpong tumatanang. Galaw-gaw, nakalilitong masdan at haliparot kahit saan. Kung kumilos, di may